State?
No, I'm just.
No,
Or
Michigan.
U of M?
Yeah.
You're not wrong.
So they play Washington this week.
Wait until the
This
players
on
go
Sunday.
on sale.
I think so much more, I would say.
Yeah, I'm not gonna fight.
So I've been singing in my head.
I'm trying to focus on the next one. It's like,
Since we left, yeah, I do. There's just like trumpets and they did music playing in my head all day.
I heard you sing that this morning on my desk. I heard you sing that.
Grand old, yes, it was the best. Like, we're like, and now we're gonna sing, it's a grand old flag, and the
organized.
crowd went back to sing.
Oh, wait.
It might take like,
Ugh.
I don't know.
Well, the trustees are right in Canada, other than that, they were.
Yeah, like this is kind of good.
And they had Canada, obviously, yeah.
Good luck.
Are you in, Janine? Are you
I
done?
am, I'm good to go.
Is it a pool or?
Sorry.
The whole village.
Okay, we're leaving.
Correct. But what it is, I mean, it's like, gosh, if there's 3 seats, the top 4 people get it. Okay, I hereby call the regular Board of Education meeting to order this November 11th, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. Please silence or turn off all electronic devices. I'm going to do the same. And could you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? There's a flag in the back of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I also just like to extend a happy Veterans Day to all those who have served. Mrs. Friedman, could you please call roll?
I would love to, but it's telling me that the minutes are locked. Oh, there we go, got it. Alright, there we go. Sorry about said, I don't even know how that happened. Bianchini,
Here.
Camardo,
Here.
Friedland here, Grimby,
Here.
Johnson is absent, Pfister,
Here.
and Ronstadt.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First up is the consent agenda. Looking over the consent agenda, are there any items that a member would like to remove and further discuss, or is there a question of clarification? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda in its entirety, which will include the following: the Board of Education meeting minutes from October 14th, 2025, Board of Education closed session meeting minutes from October 14th, 2025, the personnel report, actual payrolls, bills and checks, and equipment disposal. Motion.
Second.
May I take roll?
Yes, sorry.
Nope.
There was a motion by Ronstadt and Pfister
Yep.
was the second. Please call roll.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Pfister,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, Grimby,
Yes,
Bianchini,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
motion carries.
thank you. Next up is RTEA comments. Mr. Cashner, you have the floor.
Thank you, President Grimpy. Good evening. On behalf of the RTA Executive Committee and the entire membership, I'd like to thank the Board of Education and the administration for the excellent ongoing working relationship that we continue to have. The negotiations small team met tonight, and we moved forward a lot of our decisions in which we needed to. And I'm excited to meet with the negotiations team again next Tuesday. We've gotten so much accomplished in this last month, and we are one full month ahead than we were 4 years ago, which is really exciting when you consider we only get it done in about 5 to 6 months. So we're doing a fantastic job, and we're moving forward. And it's so nice working with people who are just so receptive and understanding, and just have such a nice air of decorum, and it's amazing to work with you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments.
Likewise.
Next up are visitor comments. At this time, I'd like to recognize any members of the audience who approach the board with their comment or question by completing a visitor comment card. Please do note that the board and administration typically does not respond, and if you wish for a response, please provide your name and number or email for a member of the board or administration to get back to you. Speakers are encouraged to limit their time for others to participate, a 3-minute time limit per speaker, with an overall 60-minute maximum for visitors' comments per hour current policy. Hearing none, we'll move on to board communication, and this is an open agenda item for all board members. Would anyone like to add anything? Please, yeah.
I got to attend Harvest Fest through NSSEO at the Sunrise Lake, and that was a great event as always, and it was very well attended. You see some board members out there, and even the superintendent from Arlington Heights. So it was really nice to see that, and they had some nice fun events. And as much as they try to organize all like fun activities, sometimes just a giant pile of leaves is all it takes for kids. But it's really a great, remind everybody that it's a wonderful facility, and they've got some great programs out there, and they are already booking for the 26-27 school year.
Thank you. Anybody else? Please.
Let's see, on October 17th, I got to attend the Indian Grove Pizza and Bingo Night. I asked for the count. Over 300 kids and family members there for the 2 sessions, so it was packed house. The next event, I feel like these are all very just full of community excitement to be back in school. So then I attended the Trails, River Trails Middle School Fall Bash, and that was a party. There was food, it was also packed, costumes, dancing, and then Indian Grove hosted Donuts with Grown-Ups on November 4th and 5th. Also had over 300 students and family members have breakfast between the 2 days. So it was just cool that little siblings came, grandparents, aunts and uncles, like there were a lot of people in our school. And then today I got to attend 2 great Veterans Day events. The middle school will host a breakfast and the band, orchestra, and choir performed. In the afternoon, Indian Grove, I don't know if it's their first ever event, but in modern history that we know of. And that was a rousing sing-along. Poems were recited. There was artwork on the walls. Like, it was really festive. So thank you to the teachers and staff that organized these events so thoughtfully. It's just an amazing opportunity to teach and educate students about the hard work and sacrifice that our veterans do, and also to provide our families with the honor and recognition that they deserve. So I cried a lot, but very proud tears. So
Anybody else?
I was gonna say we had our first kickoff for concert-wise at the middle school for both the band, chorus, and orchestra, and that was very fun. It was a very fun beginning to the year. So as always, our music program is phenomenal, and sometimes I feel like I'm recreating Frank Furino before he left, but it is a profoundly impactful program, and it was very enjoyable. So.
I think I wanted to add to just that they only had like a month to, the 6th grade orchestra. I mean, a lot of them had only been playing for less than a month. The concert pieces for less than a month. They were really impressive. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mentioned one more thing, just the topics, community engagement. So all these wonderful things going on, but we've also had some some difficulties in some of our neighborhoods with immigration enforcement, and we, I think I'm under, I know of some people. My wife witnessed some of those things, and it's been a difficult time on that front. And I did attend the village board meeting, and along with it's not my place to say, I attended the village board meeting and advocated for whatever we can do as a village to restrict access. There's only so much we can do, but some of it is definitely symbolic. So I know that's been on a lot of people's minds, and we're all one community here. So
Thank you. Anybody else?
Last Monday, part of the River Trails Education Foundation, so the annual reminder that it is a foundation set up to support all students in our district to have some fine performing arts experience. And this year, again, as they have in the past, they have been able to provide every single student in the district with the opportunity to go attend a play of the specific grade and school's choice. Special shout out to all the school admin individuals who submitted their grants on time, flawlessly, so that was much appreciated by the foundation. There will be a plant sale again in the fall. The money from the, thank you, this is the fall, next spring. Please buy your plants through them, because that is money that is used to then go directly back to the students to send them on these field trip to the plays. I think that was it. Oh wait, and the website. Did you get a request from anybody at the foundation to update our website? You did get that?
Yeah, I got that.
Great.
We're meeting next week.
Okay, thank you. That's all right.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yeah, just to recap already a lot of what's been said. Definitely enjoyed the Fall Fest at River Trails. Janine and I got to be the costume contest judges, and it was a really tough call there, and almost got to a knockdown drag out who we were gonna pick, but we chose to be adults about it, and it was really great to have such great participation from the students and the staff, and we were very excited to be able to participate in that. Very similarly, the donuts with grown-ups was equally as enjoyable, just being able to have great conversations with the parents, a lot of parent involvement, and a lot of great open conversations with the parents during that time, so that was wonderful, and grandparents and aunts and uncles, so it was really, really neat. And then yes to Mrs. Trace, who sets up the Veterans Breakfast here this morning. That was just an amazing event and just very exciting to see how much we value our service members and sharing that with the students. We had a lot of bleary-eyed orchestra and choir kids, but I still think that they appreciated the opportunity to perform and to show their appreciation as well.
Really should write things down. We also had, Louis and I had coffee with the board. We got to meet with some members at the community at the Mount Prospect Library. Thank you for your efforts in setting that up. Had some nice conversations with some ladies getting out of a stitching class, I believe. Met a few new neighbors, and got to have a nice conversation with Jean, our valued ever-present citizen observer here. So it was nice to chat with Louis and Dr. Megerly and Patty as well.
Nice.
Can I do one more thing?
Please do.
I am so sorry. You're right. We should make just lists. I thought I did. And I just wanted to say parent-teacher conferences, even though it is chaotic and crazy, and I feel for you guys so much. Everyone was just delightful, and I give a lot of credit to our staff for those really, really long days. So thank you, and again, I'm just another way to reach out to our community and make sure that we're available, so that people can, be involved in their students' learning process. So thank you.
Anybody else? All right, moving on. We received a donation from Dr. Nancy Wagner, former District 26 superintendent, so we thank her for that. And district recognition is Dr. Megerly.
Okay. Well, it's rare that we have had a board meeting on Veterans Day, so I did want to start by wishing everyone a happy Veterans Day and thank the veterans for their service. I know you already heard a little bit about it, but the day started off at the middle school with a great breakfast. Thank you to all the staff who organized events. It was nice to see several new faces at the middle school. So in terms of connecting with the community, I love that the new sixth graders brought their families to this event, and so we recycle out some of the graduating families, and we had a lot of students and families there today. In fact, I sat with a gentleman in the morning and then saw him again at Indian Grove in the afternoon. So again, offering these events for our community to connect. I was able to say hi to a couple of grandparents who I've watched their son kind of come through the system since preschool, and I know their daughter very well, but rarely do I get a chance to chat with grandparents. So I love that we offer these community events. I appreciate the staff putting together a well-coordinated effort to offer these events for our community, but it really was a really nice day. Thank you to the board members who were able to escape their everyday jobs also to attend. So again, great day all around. Now, my real recognition, happy School Board Member Appreciation Month day. I think we should celebrate all month. But really, I just want to thank you for your thoughtful leadership and your support. I am truly grateful to work along 7 unique individuals whom I proudly call my bosses. The students love to hear that I have 7 bosses. They get a kick out of that every time I tell them that. But I think each of you brings your own perspective. You have different views on different things, and I love that about this team because it truly makes us stronger in our decision making and in our work. And I appreciate that while we're not always going to agree on different things, but everybody has always been very thoughtful about listening to different perspectives and again putting ideas out on the table so that we can move forward stronger and better than where we started. And I think that's one of your greatest strengths as a board team. So I think also that each one of you is unique. I think you all have the very common goal of doing what is best for our staff, our teachers, and our students in the district. I can't remember a time where you haven't questioned, class sizes or teaching loads or things that are important to maintain a good environment for our students. And so you're not afraid to ask hard questions of me or just ask the questions. And I think, that is one thing I appreciate most, and I know the staff here also appreciates most, that you are consistently very careful and dedicated in doing what's best for our kids and our community. So every decision has always had very good thought and discussion. So thank you for your service. Thank you for being an amazing board. I love working with you, and I hope you enjoy your tagged journal so you can take very copious notes for negotiations and whatever other meetings we have. But truly appreciate your service and your volunteerism. One more point that I thought about as you were talking, it doesn't seem like you're doing all of these things in a month's time, but you really are doing so much. I know this is all volunteer work, connecting with our community, and I know that we have tried to strengthen that bond, in meeting with the community. So I appreciate the serving of donuts and the walking in the walkathons and going out to the library and not knowing who you're going to come across. But I think we have made some great strides in connecting with the community. So I really appreciate all of that extra time volunteering for this role. So thank you so much.
Thank you, it's very nice of you. We have this nice tool now for our conference next weekend, so thank you, great timing in that. And next up is new business, education services, and we have the fall assessment and summative designation.
Can't see it, so I'm just gonna keep scooting over. Thank you for giving us the time to talk about some scores and how we're doing and lots to celebrate here. So, I'm gonna start with Panorama. Not too many changes this year, as far as the topics and how we are, providing the survey, but some really interesting and great enhancements as far as reporting. So I'm gonna dig into that side of it. So some of these charts might look familiar and some of them are new, and so that's really what I want to talk to you about tonight. So a reminder, for primary, meaning kindergarten, first and second graders, our teachers are completing the surveys for the students. What you'll see here is, again, something similar as far as the topics that are given at that level, but the new enhancement is that it used to be that they would give us the favored survey as far as how the responses came out as favored. Now they're going a little bit deeper to give us more data as far as what comes next. So if you look at the side where it says emotion regulation, 76%, it's really breaking that down for us so that we can see favorable, approaching favorable, and then not favorable. And digging down to those levels really helps us with who's borderline, who's doing well, who's borderline, and who do we really need to focus on with some of these responses. So that level of detail is really helpful for our SEL teams and administrators. This is a closer look at one of the topics, which is self-management. Again, within kindergarten, first and second grade, you can see we really started off the year quite strong with even our youngest learners. We're able to see that answer distribution, how many are within the extremely focused, quite focused range, And really, if you look to the slightly focused and not at all focused, it's a very small number. So if we're thinking about our young learners, kindergarten, first and second grade, this is telling us they're really coming to us ready to learn, and teachers are noticing that. So that's great to see. It's pretty stable as far as that plot line at the bottom too. Now we're getting into 3rd through 5th grade. We're able to see under supportive relationships some of that trend data as far as where do we fall with all schools nationally and comparison groups. I know recently you saw a presentation with Doug Bolton where the focus was really on belonging and the importance of belonging within the school. And we take that very seriously. We have a really strong focus on connections. And I think you can see the response here. 3rd through 5th graders are letting us know that how important it is for those supportive relationships and where they fall within that. Additionally, last year we did a lot of coaching through our partnership with NSSEO, with our coaches coming in and doing full staff PDs. This year we started out with our first opening day with one of those coaches, talking about opening the door, connections, belonging. And this is telling us that it's really making an impact on our students. They're recognizing that and they feel that great sense of belonging within our school. The next question or another way that we can see data, this is 3rd through 5th grade also, is some free responses. So we ask these open-ended questions to students. This is one example of it. What can adults at school do to better help you? Many of the students are saying things, comments such as, they are helping us. They recognize that, again, showing the connections they have with the adults within the building. So these are some examples. We are able to really dig down into these responses, and we do within our SEL teams. So as I'm traveling between the buildings, I'm noticing that our SEL teams, our building admin, are really looking at these. An enhancement that Panorama has offered this year for the first time is they have a feature where there's a flag. And so we can export the responses and go through and see which students have been flagged and follow up on that. And many of the students that do have that flag, they're receiving some SEL support, so it's kind of another way to validate that data. But we do use these and really look at them to see both some celebrations and also who needs some further help or support. This is getting into middle school now with self-management. And it shows different ways that we can filter the data. So on this one, you can see that we can filter by gender, grade level, or race, depending on how we want to get that information. And it's showing as far as self-management, I'll say across the board, it's impressive how our 6th graders coming into middle school are scoring and how ready they are. This particular topic, self-management, asks students questions such as within the past couple weeks, how did they manage their own emotions, thoughts, and feelings within different situations? Things such as, were you able to allow others to speak without interrupting them? Were you prepared for your classes? Are you following directions? And really asking them to reflect on some of those behaviors. And the data is continuously quite good in these areas. If we want to go deeper into comparisons, we're able to see, here's another piece of data that shows by grade level how prepared 6th graders really are coming to us. Blue meaning favorable. If it's kind of that gray color, it's neutral. And orange is some areas where we might want to look a little bit deeper. So some of these types of questions ask them, again, how they're prepared. If they're able to use time management well, so if they have some multi-day projects or bigger projects, are they able to break it up? Questions that for studying and preparing for high school and future will be really helpful for us to know how they're doing. With that, a large focus additionally, in addition to the belonging and the relationships this year, is on executive functioning across all buildings in our district. So this is helping us then to know what are some other skills that students would require a bit more support in. But sixth grade strong. And then if we want to dig a little bit deeper, this is similar to previous options that we had to look at that data. We can go in, this is middle school, and look at sense of belonging and emotion regulation. We can click the green, meaning favorable responses, yellow, maybe some questionable responses there, and then red, and really be able to, again, use that to validate some data or some interventions and see how things are going with our SEL supports. So we use this within our SEL meetings, and our SEL teams are meeting weekly with admin in all 4 buildings. And then we get into, this is a new feature that Panorama is offering us. This is for the teacher and staff. They are able to kind of give us a summary of positive themes, neutral themes, and maybe some things that we need to consider more. And one thing that I noticed as I was going through this is how complex our system really is. Because if you look at some of those topics, they're really overlapping. So at that point, we would go into the free responses, which are anonymous, but building admin SEL teams are looking at that to see some of those things. And so you can see what those topics are, but district and building admin are reviewing those, and we're looking for celebrations in other areas that are coming up. Okay, so it's a good picture overall of the whole district.
Well, I asked Bill to come back this month, but you guys scared him away. So you are stuck with me this evening, and I apologize. But I appreciate the warm response you gave Mr. Timmons last month when he was here to talk a little bit about some of the new norms that are part of our data sets this year. I've tried to take as many factors of those norms out of the presentation this evening so that you can see how we compare from year to year to year. I do have one slide in here that'll show you just how those norms maybe shifted, what our data may look like, and I'll get into that in just a minute. So we're going to start out just looking at some data trends. All right, here we go. So my objectives this evening are to help you understand the steps involved in that fall analysis of data. And when I was sharing kind of the initial presentation with Dr. Megalay, she said, I really want the board to understand the system behind the data review, so when the principals come in and they start speaking about the different things that are happening within their buildings, the board has kind of that overarching understanding of the system in order to really comprehend the work that they're doing with their buildings. So if I can get that through to you this evening, I hope that my job is well done. And then I also would love you to gather a good understanding of our fall data trends and what things look like in our district. So my first graphic here was a self-created graphic. I'm not a graphic designer, but that just really looks at the different phases of data analysis that happen both in the fall, in the winter, in the spring, and then really are circular, and they come back again in the fall the following year. So that first phase of our data analysis is really to do a district-wide analysis and look at how are things looking comparatively from year to year to year. What are we seeing typical results that we would expect, or is something looking a little bit atypical? Then from there we start to look at those longitudinal pieces. Are our students in 3rd grade and in the following year in 4th grade and in the following year in 5th grade showing a growth trajectory that we want to see? What are those longitudinal growth curves looking like, and are they healthy? And then from there, we really go into more of that targeted group analysis. Most of our curricular resources are written to the middle of the grade level standard. So students that are kind of falling in that normative range, kind of falling in that middle range, that's who the curriculum is really written to address. It's those students that are on the outlier, that are the outliers, those students that maybe fall below, or those students that are performing significantly above the norm. Those are the students we really need to look at, how might we need to do something different in order to really help them meet their growth goals. So that third step of our process is to really do that targeted analysis on certain groups. Once all that's done and we're able to say to the buildings that our data looks healthy, or we've noticed this and here's some areas you may want to dig into, we kind of pass it along to them. And that's where they start digging in at a more building level analysis. And that's what the principals will bring to you when they come to their meetings every month to show you a little bit about what they do with their data. You're going to see these graphics pop into my slides throughout the evening this evening that you can kind of reference so that you know what part or what phase of the data analysis are we in. This graph should look familiar. You've seen something like this from year to year to year. If you look historically in my presentations every fall, you will see something like this. I've tried to be consistent this evening, keeping English language arts on the left-hand side of the screen and math on the right, so that you can see those patterns across different buildings, different grade levels. So basically what we're looking at with this data, and I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide here, is we're looking at this series of bars within a grade level. And we want to see, are the second graders, third graders, fourth graders that are entering into our classrooms this year presenting with similar skills to those that we have seen in the past. And this is important for our teachers because they need to know, is this group performing typically higher than we will see, lower? Am I going to need to change? Am I going to need to modify what I have done in the past in order to meet their needs? Or should their skills be pretty consistent with what I've known before? So in this case, you can see with this second grade example, the scores are very, very similar to what we've seen in the past. And then our teachers know, okay, if I have a second grader coming in and their average RIT score is in that 171 to 180 band, here's what I know they can do with confidence. Here's what I know I need to work toward. So the good news in the graph that I showed to you here is you can see we're very, very consistent. And in the course of the last several years, this is 4 years worth of data, I have finally moved beyond the COVID years in my data that I'm bringing to you. You can see that we can pretty much expect the skills that students are coming in with each year. So that's the first thing we look at. If we saw something discrepant, we would dig further into that data. Now I told you I was going to bring one data point on the norms, and that is this one here. The previous graph looked at the RIT score, and the RIT score is really just the scale that MAP uses to measure where students are performing. RIT scores have not changed. They're exactly the same last year as they are this year. What's changed is the norm. So the norm of where that RIT score falls on the bell curve might look a little bit different. But what I wanted to be sure of was that looking at these new norms, we weren't skewing our perception of where our students fall. So this graph looks at where the new norms, where we are performing, where the new norms are set and where the old norms fall. And what you'll notice in these graphs, both on the side of English language arts as well as on the side of math, we are outperforming both sets of norms. And that's what we want to see. That's what our students deserve, and that's what we expect of the performance in our school district. We do not want to see that fall below the norm, but most specifically, we want to see it outperform that previous norm that we know was a little bit higher given the previous population of students back in 2020. Moving beyond just that first step, moving into the second step, I want to look at that longitudinal growth. And the first thing you're probably going to ask is, what is that big black bar? That big black bar has been there for a couple of years, so those of you who have been here on this journey with me for the last several years, that is our COVID year. So you can see that we still have two cohorts of students that we have data on, both pre and post-COVID, and that's our current 8th grade class this year and our current 7th grade class this year. So the bar is just there as a reference point, not necessarily as a data point. But what we're looking at here when we look at these, and we're looking at those cohorts of students, 2032 being our second graders this year, is we want to look at that trajectory of the graph. So we're looking at the slope of that line, and we want to make sure that that slope of that line is positive. We want to make sure that the slope of that line is staying consistent from year to year, if not increasing, and we're growing faster than we typically have. We know that student growth slows down as the students get older. That's just a design of the test. Our students grow a lot when they're little, and that growth slows down, but it never should stop. We should continue to see these bars trend upward, and that's exactly what we're seeing in all of our grade levels at a very, very consistent rate. If we were to see that slope or that trajectory of that line dip for any reason, that would be something of relative concern that we would want to dig into more specifically. Now remember, this is district data, so we're taking all of our students into this cohort. What the buildings are doing is they're making sure that their trend lines look similar. Are they trending in the positive direction at that equal slope across all grade levels, or are they seeing a dip in any grade levels? And then starting to go through that hypothesis phase of why might that be happening? Or are they seeing a real strong growth in one grade level, and again, hypothesizing on how can we replicate that in other grade levels? So that's the longitudinal analysis that we do with our data points. And again, similar to Dr. Cohen's report with SEL and with Panorama, everything is looking very, very healthy. So moving on to that third phase is we start to look at our at-risk populations. And I say at risk looking at both ends of the spectrum because again, these are students that may need a little bit more or differentiated instruction. So MAP lays it out very nicely for us. This is an example of how they may present our reading data. Down at the bottom, and it's really tiny on the graphic overhead, but we can see the color codes and we can see what percentile bands our students are falling into. When we look at our academically at-risk students, we typically look at students falling at or below the 20th to 25th percentile. So that blue band that you see on the left-hand side. What we're able to do as we go into this is we're able to dig into that 12%, that 8%, that 5%, and we're able to see who are these students? Are they receiving the support that they need and they deserve? Do they need more support, or have they been growing and are they working their way out of that at-risk band? And we're able to do that more granularly at the building level. What we do like to see, and for the most part we see it on this graph, is we like to see that blue start to diminish over time. And as our students get older, hopefully if our system is working, we see that at-risk population starts to shrink. On the opposite, on that right-hand side there, we can see our students performing at or above the 80th percentile to the far right. And we can, again, take a look at who are these students, what level of differentiation might be needed, and how do we support that. I will throw caution in with our second grade data. Second grade data is a first data point, the first time students are ever taking these tests, so sometimes that data isn't always as accurate as we might see as students are a few tests in. What we hope to see on the right-hand side is we hope to see that blue band increase as students are with us longer, and hopefully we're growing more and more students into that upper tier, that upper range. And the next graphic here is just the exact same picture of math. So in looking at these performance plans, again, we can identify the percentage of students at each grade level who may benefit from some more extensive differentiation in terms of tiers of support. It helps us know if we have staffing allocated correctly. Do we have enough support at each building in order to meet the needs of those students, or do we need to work with our resources in order to provide that? We can look at comparisons of these bands from year to year to make sure that they are not in fact growing and that we don't need additional support in any of these areas so that we can confidently meet student need. So you may remember this graph. I'm transitioning now into our littles. And this is kind of a homegrown graph. Unfortunately, AimsWeb doesn't have as many great graphics that are already created, so this is one that I've kind of built over the course of the years. And what you can see on this, the first graph I'm showing you is literacy scores. And you can see that I have a lot of my different my images or my clip arts in there to show you that this graph really represents a lot of things that we're doing from an analysis standpoint. First and foremost, as a district, we're looking at, are the students coming in with similar skills, again, from what we knew in previous years? Is the green staying consistent? Is the yellow staying consistent? Is that pinkish area staying consistent? And you'll notice this year that our kindergartners are coming in at what looks like higher performing than we've had in previous years, which is great news. However, we also know that there are new norms applied at kindergarten. So we're being very cautious with this data to make sure that our students are receiving the support that they need in kindergarten. We're having lots of conversations. We have our interventionists, our multilingual teachers pushing into classrooms to really see how our students are doing with core curriculum, to see if they need any additional support beyond that. In addition to this, we can still look at that longitudinal growth, and I tried to replicate that on here for you with colored stars so you can see how those cohorts are moving. In 2024, the star for our kindergarten, they are now our first graders in 2025. And you're gonna notice a big shift from that graphic from fall of 2024 in kindergarten to what that looks like now in first grade. So again, it looks fantastic. We're very, very proud of those first grade scores. However, we're being very cautious with that data again, because these are new norms to us, and again, we want to make sure that our kids are getting what they need and that they're growing at the rate we would expect them to grow. We will reassess our first graders in January to see what that growth rate looks like and to see if these scores are remaining consistent. But the way it looks on paper, it looks excellent, and we just need to make sure that we're communicating with our teachers, looking at our classroom data, and working with our interventionist team to make sure the students that need support are receiving support. And I have that same graph here for math. And what you'll notice for math is things look more so consistent. Remember, math was not renormed this year, so we are working with consistent norms in the area of math. So where we go from there. The fourth phase of this is really passing that on to the buildings. The buildings are already digging deep, as I'm sure Angela and Beth can attest to. The buildings are deep into their data. They've already done their fall data analysis, their fall data digs, looking at their math data, looking at all of their different classes, especially at the middle school, to make sure that they know where their individual students are at, having those conversations with kids on what they need to do to grow, differentiating, and making sure that services are available and provided to students who need them. Before I move on to school accountability, are there any questions on the fall academic data?
I have a question.
Sure.
So I see when you go back to slide 22, just for
Tell me more. I don't
That
even
is
know
the-
which one.
we monitor at risk and accelerated population.
Okay.
So we're looking at the school as a whole, or our district as a whole.
Right.
But do we look at, say, the 8th graders and see how did they test when they were 7th graders and how did they test when they were 6th? And do we ever report that out to see the progress of our accelerated or our at-risk kids and how they, hopefully, that number shrunk as they progress from 2nd to 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th?
Yeah, and that's when we look at growth. So there's a metric within the system called conditional growth. And it's really looking at what percentage of students are meeting a growth target set for them within this system, and that's exactly how we monitor that. And so our strategic plan has a growth goal of 65%. We have not been hitting the 65% target in ELA every year. We have been exceeding it in math. But with the new norms, we came very, very close to 65 this past year. 50 is average. So we are very closely monitoring growth. I would say we monitor growth more than we monitor achievement in our district. Our principals are very zoned in on looking at that conditional growth for each and every student. In the winter, the principals have a list of students who didn't meet their conditional growth in previous years. We do not assess all students in the winter. However, students that did not meet their growth targets for the past year, they are assessed in the winter to make sure that we are on the right track in order to making sure that we don't allow that to happen 2 years in a row.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I had a question. This was about the heart part. You mentioned the 6th graders, at least in the survey, showed they're a little more prepared or like more confident in certain areas, and I was just curious if that's similar to past 6th grade. Like, I guess I wonder, is that the right word? I wonder, is it related to just, do we see the numbers go down as you go from 7th to 8th and just being a teenager, preteen, like as that growth, or is it the related to the like improvements and the investments we've made and really taking care, and like in the last couple of years, to make sure we're reinforcing
Yeah.
school expectations and organization.
Our 7th and 8th grade scores are pretty stable. Our 6th grade, I would say, and again, the way that they're reporting it is a little bit different. So we're able to see things at a different level than we have previously. But I would say from going through all of our SELT meetings and looking at the data, 7th and 8th grade, it isn't that they aren't doing as well. We are seeing very similar scores with them. 6th grade, it seems like there's more of a bump. So whatever we're doing as far as, you know, bringing in, we brought in Second Step, we've got Rethink Ed at the middle school level, we have advisory. I think that our, you know, our morning meetings at elementary, I think all of that is benefiting, and we're able to see that a bit more in that 6th grade jump, with seeing that favorable number being higher potentially than previously.
Anybody else?
All right, I'm gonna jump ahead really quickly to school accountability, and I have fantastic news, and I know you saw the press release Jody was able to share regarding our school accountability ratings from the state of Illinois. And this is my chance every year to make sure that you know and understand what goes into those ratings, how the state determines those ratings, and then I have a little surprise at the end of the presentation to let you know that that's going to be changing again next year. But we can celebrate consistency at least for this year. So again, this is a pie that you've seen frequently over the last several years. I believe this rolled out in 2022. The thing I like about the state's accountability model that they have put in place these last several years is kind of several things. Number one, it is focused on growth. It is not strictly focused on proficiency. We know that students come to us from a variety of different areas, different backgrounds, different language backgrounds, different cultures, many only being in the country for a year or two, and they're given these high stakes tests. But the tests are based on growth, and the accountability score is heavily weighted on student growth from year to year to year, not necessarily where they started or where they're currently performing at. It is also balanced in head ready and heart ready. It is not solely looking at academic measures of success. It is also looking at absenteeism, it is looking at attendance, it's looking at our climate survey. So it's bringing in factors that we truly value and hold dear to heart in River Trails. I did want to just remind you, and I think Bill mentioned this to you last month, there are some different linguistics of the test this year. They have changed the names of the different performance levels on standardized tests. So for instance, the IAR used to have 5 different levels of performance. That has been consolidated to 4. ISA was 4, it remains 4, but the names of those bands have changed. So if you're looking closely at an IAR report or an ISA report that came home, just know that some of the levels and some of the language of that has changed, which has also been carried over into the accountability ratings. So what do these summative designations mean? I tried to add the graphic on the right this year just to show you kind of what that bell curve looks like for exemplary, commendable, and comprehensive support. So you can see that there are very, very few schools at that exemplary level. The majority of schools fall into that commendable level, and then there's that comprehensive support level. In order to be in that exemplary level, you need to be in the top 10% of all index scores across the state. So basically they calculate this score, this index score for all schools. They put them all in order, and they draw a line at 10%. So that is always a moving target. So we can say, hey, we're shooting for an index score of 80, because last year that was exemplary. Well, this year the exemplary cut might be 82. We never really know exactly what we're striving for, other than we want to be in that top 10% to reach exemplary. To be commendable, you need your all population to fall within that, right below that 10%, but not in the underperforming percentage. And you have to have all of your student performance groups also falling within that range in order to be commendable. And targeted is if one group falls below. And we continue to be commendable, meaning that our all group falls in that range, and all of our student groups also fall within that range of normal. So what are our student groups? This graphic kind of highlights it for you. You can see that at the middle school, all student groups are represented. At Indian Grove, we have nearly all student groups represented. We do not have enough students to make up our former English learners group or our Hispanic English learners group at Indian Grove, and we do not have enough Asian students at Euclid to have a student group for Asian, but in all other areas, we have representative student groups. This graphic shows you where we fell in regard to that top 10% and that bottom 10%. In the all category, because that's kind of the first pass through, if you hit all above that top 10%, that's where you would be exemplary. If you fall slightly below that, you would be commendable, as long as all of those other bars stay above that bottom 5% line. And you can see that we're well above that in all areas. Mr. Timmons almost cried because he was so close this year, but it's okay.
Now, just to be clear, I think we've got great programs at all the schools. These are, you know, complex numbers with demographics behind them.
Yes.
And other
Very
types of
much
things.
so.
Our schools, as we've always said, you know, Euclid is as good as Indian Grove.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Timmons.
No, they do, and you'll notice, you know, at Euclid School, their former EL population rocks the IAR test. They do an absolutely fantastic job, and they actually exceeded that top 10% score in that category this year. So they're very, very proud of that. So no, our schools do a great job, and you will see shifts in these I call them subgroups or student group scores from year to year, because they're small populations of students for the most part. You're talking about 20, 25, 30 students. So a shift of a couple scores can cause what looks like a sizable decline or increase, but really we keep an eye on that all and make sure that our student groups are performing in average ranges. So what does that mean for us? All of our schools have earned a commendable rating. Again, Prairie Trails is not rated because they do not have any first grade students at that school, and kindergarten is not a compulsory grade. So how are we doing in comparison to state performance? And you can see here where our meets and exceeds populations are in ELA in comparison to the state, outperforming the state there. In math. And in science. Very, very proud of the performance of our students. Very, very proud of the hard work of our teachers to once again achieve these fantastic ratings. So coming in fall of 2026, there are going to be changes to the accountability system. They are pretty complex. I would highly encourage you that if there's any sessions at III that may preview this, that might be something good to sit in on. Basically what they're doing, they're keeping the structure, but they're really going into that commendable range where you saw such a bulk of schools, and they are breaking that into 3 different tiers that will get different levels of support aligned with those different tiers. So that's in very short some of the work that they'll be doing. The timeline for that, they're on listening tours now. They're starting to go around the state and prepare and present their first draft of the new accountability measure, getting some public comment, presenting to their boards. They're hoping to make some revisions and hopefully get board approval for this by January so they can submit to the Department of Ed. The Department of Ed can hopefully approve, and then they can implement for next fall. The process is long and complicated, and so obviously the timeline ahead of that is long as well. So we will see what's coming. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions?
Fantastic
All
presentation.
right, thank you.
Thank you so much for all your work on this. Okay, next up is business services. The first thing we've got is the transfer of funds from the education fund and operations and maintenance fund to the debt services fund. This is information and an action item. Ryan, do you have the floor? Sorry?
Finance.
What's that?
Just go to NSSU.
All right. Never mind, we're going to committee updates. My script apparently is different than yours. We're gonna start off with NSSEO updates. And we're going to, Robert, you can cover the articles of agreement, please. And this will be an action item for us.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, we discussed that, we had some concerns with the articles of agreement. I am very happy to say that many, or really all of my concerns that I brought were addressed, which was partially a surprise, but I don't care how it got there at this point, it's there. So, we all had some concerns, and I think some other districts chimed in as well, and the articles were modified to, if you go through it and wordsmith it, you're gonna find a thing or two. Don't go that far. There's a couple things they're gonna need some time to kind of work out, but I think the purpose of the articles agreement here was to establish this two-tier governance structure, and I think that with this draft of the articles agreement, we have that. We will have the contribution of our wonderful superintendents. We will have the also have the proper governance and oversight coming from our governing board. So I'm very excited to see this move forward. Does anybody have any specific questions?
We can cover that after we do the motion. Okay. All right, let me get a motion and a second to ratify the proposed amendments to the NSSEO Articles of Agreement for legal entity and adopt the resolution as a whole.
Moved.
Second.
Moved by Bianchini, second by Aronson. Does anybody have any comments or questions before we call for a vote?
I read it, I just wanted to kind of clarify, so this will be agreed upon, it will go into effect, it'll start immediately, or January?
So it's a little weird that it technically says that after 5 districts ratify it, that it goes into effect.
Oh,
But it also says
then why do we
that,
need to ratify?
and this is why I said don't get into the wordsmithing part, because it also says if you don't ratify it, then you're not in good standing.
Oh,
I-
okay.
So however it formally works out, I think that we're ready to, ratifying this, it will go into effect in the next few months here, but officially go into effect on January 1st. Because we're hoping to have everybody ratify it by December. I've been a vocal advocate for some changes to this agreement, and now that those changes have been made, I'm now a very vocal proponent of the agreement. So I'm excited to push this forward, and I'm comfortable ratifying or recommending that this be ratified now, and that, we could take another month if you had some questions.
No, I don't, and then the other thing I just wanted to point out, and I was happy to have an actual date, was that it will be reviewed in December 31st, 2027, and then every 2 years after that, so I think that's great to reflect on if it's working.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
The only question I have is, and this is really more of your opinion, I guess, what districts do you feel are going to vote it down or not agree to it?
None of them.
That's great.
I think all of them will approve it.
That's excellent.
I think everybody's concerns have been addressed, and I'm very happy to hear that, or very happy to say that, because it wasn't that way a month ago.
Very true. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Bianchini,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Monson,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, Pfister,
Yes.
and Cordo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Besides that, I added some other things in there. One thing well, 2 things I'll highlight that I'm particularly proud of is that we've had just an organizational focus on improving attendance, which has been very much in cooperation with the union, and we've seen some very good gains and improvements to institute days and, days off that are around the weekends and stuff, and, education, it's a tough business, some people say, they got off all school, all summer, still, it's a tough job. That was a kind of, and special ed's, kind of up another level there. So, all due respect to all our typical teachers here. And then the second thing is that we, like District 26, are starting our union negotiations. So, we've got the demand to bargain. Again, we've got a great relationship with the union as well, and we have been starting the process of strategizing in conjunction with some guidance from our superintendents on the negotiations, and I'm on that negotiation team. So that's it. And then, yeah, we started the process with the NSSEO budget formation, which has to start kind of well before ours because it continues to, it has to feed into ours. But I also did highlight, like, they got 5 new students, which, you know, for a typical district, that gets spread across a couple of classrooms, but in this case, you know, caused us to have to hire at least 1 new person. So, you know, and it, you know, with the extra supports and stuff, that, you know, a couple students can really move the you know, I guess the budget around. So, you know, but it's all funded by the tuition and of course voluntary from both the member and non-member districts that request that a student be placed.
So I have a question and also a question of clarity. So will you be bringing us negotiation updates as you go through the process, like we do in our own negotiation committee?
I think, you know, understanding that there's some confidentiality in the bargaining process, yes, I would I'm anticipating bringing what I can to this board.
Because my question of clarity would be, is that covered in closed session? And then, so it wouldn't be part of the NSSEO update, it would be, we would discuss it in closed session because it's part of negotiations, even though we're not negotiating per se, but obviously part of our budget. So we should know what's going on in the negotiations. I don't recall how that was done the last.
Well, I did it 4 years ago, but, you know, I don't remember the exact process that we went through, so I'm open to suggestions. But yes, I would like to provide a reasonable update to this board.
Sure.
But, you know, understand as you're involved with negotiations, there's quite a bit of complexity in the contract, and,
Yep.
you know, we're following kind of a similar process that we are here.
Do you know that answer?
No, I think he negotiated before.
Yeah, and I actually-
don't know what.
Yeah, and I actually think
I
that.
don't mean to ask a gotcha question, that wasn't my.
No, but that actually brings up another thing that, you know, when we just passed the Articles of Agreement, but it didn't make, the Articles of Agreement didn't make any, didn't make any, that there's not a specified way that the superintendents can have a closed session. So, the superintendents want to contribute, and I want their contribution, but, you know, getting into some specifics, there may be things that they need to discuss in a closed session. So that might be a topic you could bring back to that group and say, how does that group address that, right? I don't know the answer to that.
Do you think, is that a topic, do you think the superintendents would have to have a closed session?
Well,
I don't know until we get in the rhythm of how our meetings are going to actually operate. If the meetings are OMA meetings, I would think that we could have a closed session whenever we wanted to have a closed session, as long as it was on the agenda
And the topics?
appropriately, right?
Gotcha.
You know, I'm thinking that Robert could probably cover the 50,000-foot view of negotiations in open session,
Yeah.
because the complexities of negotiating with the different districts are not gonna be detailed out to our board as a whole, most likely.
yeah, and I think that's also, yeah, where all of that input comes from is still kind of in the works. I can say is part of,
Excuse me.
bless you, as part of the Articles of Agreement, as drafted, that approval of the contract, well, it would always have, but the negotiation and approval of the contract remains with the governing board. Do we want contributions from the superintendents? Yes. But it's always a funny thing with NSSEO, right? Because you have 8 member districts that all do things one way and might have rates for, you know, teachers or support staff or, you know, work rules or benefits. I mean, it's a co-op, but it also is its own organization. So, you know, and I've said for a long time, we're moving towards more cooperation, but we still kind of compete. So, you know, we're still
Yeah.
competing for the same resource.
I would say a lot of the things that are interests on the list are interests in terms of how the organization runs internally. I think that financially impacts to our budget would be shared with you when they get to that point,
Sure.
but not like dollars and cents or specifics of specific raises. So, but a lot of what's on their discussion list is just the internal operations of the organization to be successful.
They've got a lot of, you know, just
Things you would
concerns.
not be interested in for the most part. But
Maybe he is, I can talk for
Yeah,
hours
right.
about it if you want.
when they get to pieces that are gonna impact our budget, like those would be things that we would probably,
Wanna know
Yeah.
about, sure, I
Yeah.
would agree.
And again, the biggest thing that impacts our budget is our district's choice in what services we pull from NSSEO. So, you know, all of the dollars that we spend with NSSEO are through tuition or through purchase services. So, you know, any cost, you know, what specifically has a budget implication is, you know, wage percentage increases or, you know, that, which is the same for kind of all of us. But
Gotcha, thank you, appreciate your input. Thank you. You're not done yet, benefits committee, and you are the rep since Donna is not here.
Okay, well, we had a great meeting with the benefits committee. You know, again, love the cooperative relationship we have with the union. You know, we all genuinely want to best utilize the dollars that are available for benefits, and you know, a lot of that just has to do with the efficient plan construction and you know, making decisions about you know the plan construction. And you know, it's a, you know, everybody deals with insurance. It's a complex animal and has, you know, varying, you know, the risk pools that you're in, and the, you know, there's some things you can control, there's some things you can't. So it's both. It's nice to certainly work with the folks on the team. It's quite terrible to have to work in this system, but it is what it is.
All right, next up is the finance committee. We had a meeting tonight. Mr. Camardo, you are the chair.
All right, we had a very efficient meeting, went over a lot of topics, some procedural, a bunch of information, and a couple, I would say, non-controversial action items in terms of approving some fees for the normal schedule. First up on that list is the school maintenance grant. So, Mr. Berry, just want to give a quick update on that?
Yep, this is a maintenance grant that is distributed by the state. They are doing another $50,000 maintenance grant this year. So we are applying for that. We need matching funds, and luckily we have a few solar panel projects that we are able to use for those funds. So the board does need to approve our application, and that's why it's an information and action item tonight.
All right, let me entertain a motion and a second for the administration to move forward with applying for the fiscal year 26 maintenance grant.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Bianchini. Any comments or questions?
Is the grant, did you project that savings in the budget, or is this a net positive to our budget?
This is a net positive to the budget. The state doesn't necessarily pay this grant on a timely basis, so.
Neither is it guaranteed, right?
What's that?
Neither is it guaranteed. We're applying for it, but it's not 100% guaranteed we get it.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, please call roll.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Pfister,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Grumpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, action carried, or motion carries.
Thank you. Next up is I'm sorry, this is still your update. Go for it.
Oh, great. All right, next up is just an information piece on the tax compliance report that we are in good standing, as you would assume. Any extra detail to that?
No, it's part of policy that we complete this report, and it basically maintains that we are doing all things properly and maintaining all of our tax exempt status for the bonds that we've issued.
Just information only.
Yep.
Good job. Next up, both information and action is on our student fee schedule. I guess I could go over just briefly unless you want to touch on it. As we always have in years past, extremely modest increases to the student fee schedule. It's consistent with all prior year budgets, representing 1.4 to 1.5% of our total overall revenues. There are no structural changes to the fee structure. The past couple of years, we kept modifying the bus fee schedule, discounts at higher number of riders, whatnot. So this year, it's the exact same as it has been before. Same thing with meals. Just very small incremental increases, like right around that 3% more or less. So you'll see about a $5 to $50 increase across the board on all the items. Any specific questions from anyone? They looked at the schedule.
Just to be clear, that the students on,
We gotta get a motion,
Oops. Sorry.
No problem.
Do you have anything to add to it?
The only thing I like to add every year is the district continues to not charge students to participate in all after-school activities, including athletics, clubs, band, anything like that. Or do we charge for the after-school activity buses that we offer at each school as well? So, which I think is great for our students to be able to participate and work with staff further into the day. So,
Thank you. All right, let me get a motion and a second to approve the following for the following school fees for the 26-27 school year. Transportation, $145 for all riders. Material and technology for elementary is going to be $260, and middle school $290. Preschool tuition $3,900. Preschool snacks $95, and these we do have early bird pricing. Those are the after May 1st material and technology increases by $25 and transportation increases by $50. So can I have a motion and a second to approve those fees?
Motion.
second,
Motion by Camardo and second by Ronstadt. And what was your question?
well, first of all, thank you for adding some context about the school-related fees. So everybody loves fees, right? But I get that we don't do fees for free lunch or for students for material and technology. I guess if I'm reading this right, there's no discount for those students for transportation, just a provision to allow them to make payments. Is that correct?
yes, that is correct.
Okay. Yeah, I know this is an action item, but I'd like to see some, either this year or next, some, especially if we're not, if we got 30% of our population is low income. I don't know exactly what that means, like in terms of what the thresholds are, but when you talk about like the extracurriculars, I love that, but maybe there's a little bit of play there where some families could afford to pay for some of those extracurriculars to help offset some fee. I don't know. I don't want to add administrative overhead, but I sure like making sure that our less fortunate folks are subsidized at least partially. And for transportation in particular, we have to plan for the number of riders, so we need to have some fee to make them use it, right? But just there's maybe a balance that we could work on either now or in the future.
Well, our transportation fees are hundreds of dollars cheaper than other districts. I mean, heads and shoulders cheaper, or I guess that's the opposite. Never mind. Brian, you did a survey on some of them.
Yeah, other districts within the area charge nearly up, over $500 for transportation fees. I don't know if there are any benefits for their free and reduced students. One district that's not too far away, probably a half hour, 40 minutes away, within Cook County charges up to $1,000 for transportation. There is that fine line of, you know, cost and, paying, not like paying for the seat, right? You know, the cost is less than $1 a day, and it does, maintain some sort of responsibility of, I'm going to ride the bus, because otherwise, you know, we don't wanna have 20 different routes
Yep.
of empty buses
No,
going
right
around
there.
too, so
Absolutely.
I definitely understand, the concern, and I've heard it from some parents, and we do offer, you know, kind of payment plans throughout the year, so that they can, you know, it's not a one-time fee or anything like that, if they need be, and, but we can certainly look at how we assess that fee. We also don't need to technically offer transportation, we would never take it away, I don't want that to be out there, but. Yeah,
So I know every year this comes up, and every year I know that we have to maintain, I guess, certain fees. I just think that as wages are becoming stagnant, our taxes are all going up, and then we have, I know it's only a $10 bump on, you know, registration fees, or well, the technology and student material fees. Just to say that that's like a casual little bump up, I think, doesn't necessarily always resonate with all of our families, especially for those that have multiple kids in multiple schools. So I just want to be cognizant of that, and I know that Robert, I get what you're saying too about trying to maintain certain things for our free and reduced students and families. I just think that sometimes this is going to hit families harder than we think, just because of what is currently taking place with job security and other things. So I just want to be cognizant of that, and I know that it, like I said, it's for some people it's just $10, but that's not for everybody, especially when you have 3, 4, 5 kids. So I always have a problem with our fees. We have our families that pay really substantial taxes to be in this district, along with the high school district, and I think we should just be cautious how we approach these.
I had a question about, two questions. One is about, because I know last year we did change the bus structure fee because it made it, I think, cleaner, also administratively for us to keep track of who paid. I was just, and if you don't have the data now, you could share it later. I was just curious, did that affect ridership at all, up or down, either way, it remained?
no,
the
there's
same,
really
pretty much?
no material difference between last year and this year,
Okay.
in ridership of the buses.
And this is maybe too much, but I know we give like basically a discount or a penalty, whichever way you look at it, for paying by May 1st. I mean, I feel it in May when I have all of the bus and the school food, and you start adding up, even I only have 2 kids, but 3 and 4. I just wonder if there is something that we could do if a family needed it, to say, can I pay like an initial installment in May and like monthly, and then but not get charged the like late fee. And I know if someone called, we probably would offer that, but I wonder if that could be like a little more clear somewhere.
Well, the incentive to pay for it by May 1st is really more so we could finalize our head counts, and we can make
Yeah,
sure we've got.
I get that. I just wonder if there's like something that they could do, like a one full payment for one kid, or like, it's just a lot of, I think, being cognizant that it can be a lot of cash to come up with for all of your kids, that it hits in 1 month. And you try to budget, but like, it is I mean, if you start adding up, you got 3 kids, you're paying $1,000 in May.
And we do offer that, you know, especially if somebody does call. I'm not sure if there's a specific way that a parent can set it up on their own on Pushcoin, but we do offer that, and really the only payment that you have to make, and it doesn't have to be in full early, is for the bus before school starts, because we need to know, are you actually riding the bus or just requesting it. But we absolutely do offer payment plans. You know, we try to set it up to have equal payments, but yet substantial enough to where it's not gonna take you all year to pay it off. But we do offer it, and quite a few families take us up on that because they wanna make sure that they pay something so that they can get that early bird discount.
I feel like I need to add it since Mrs. Johnson's not here, but the value of the bus is for students. We want kids to be able to easily get to school, parents to eat, so attendance, but also if people did not take the bus, I don't know that our schools and roads and infrastructure could handle everybody dropping their kid off school. It's already lines on Wolf and Burning Bush, so we try to keep the bus affordable to make it efficient for all families and the school to function and get kids to school on time, so.
I know she knows.
And I'm so sorry, because I feel like we went over this last year. Did we take that $25 fee that used to be like the insurance, and did we just wrap that into the technology fee? Do you remember?
That's what we did,
It was
right?
kind of wrapped into the material fee.
Okay.
And that way, for those free and reduced students, they no longer have to pay that.
Okay. Thank you. I just couldn't off the top of my head and didn't bring my other notebook.
May I just ask one other question and just maybe something for future conversation? Obviously with the free and reduced lunch, then the federal food program does reimburse us for those meals. And so we do recoup that output of food. Is there anything that is available, even at a township level, that maybe some of our parents could partner with? For example, some of our parents in a net township close to us, when they're registering with the school and they're struggling with the fees, townships will offer support, connecting them with somebody at either the village or the township level and Health and Human Services to discuss that. Have we approached Wheeling, or have we approached any of our local partners to discuss that?
Not that I'm aware of in regards to fees. You know, meals and other things. I'm sure the school social workers have been in contact with. You know, they've got a network of people, but nothing in regards to student fees. We reached out to them.
So, I mean, we would refer student families to that. We would reach out to them.
Right, no, but that, I guess that was my question, is do we have the policy when we do identify or a family mentions to us, we're struggling in this area, we're struggling with these fees, you know, do we have a policy to refer them to some of the other supportive services in the area that might be helpful with that?
I would say that our social workers most likely have connections, at least community connections, where we can offer resources and information to them. Not that I want to
Yeah, no, I
overspeak,
was
but
just gonna say, I don't know that anyone will pay their fees for them, so they try to subsidize in other ways with meals, clothing, things like that. And so we do that regularly, all year long. But I don't know any group that would write them, you know what I mean, like just give them cash or write them a check. So I don't know that anybody would help with fees per se, but would they try to support in other ways so they can reallocate the money to bills?
Yeah, and part of the challenge too that some people have is when you're looking for assistance, that seeking that assistance and getting that assistance, getting approved for it takes time, takes effort, and that's something not necessarily these folks have either. So I'm still looking. I get, especially on the transportation fees, I get that we gotta have something there, but you kind of, Ryan, jumped out with some of the extracurriculars, like, you know, again, like there's some people that, you know, writing a check for a couple $100, like whatever, they don't know, they don't care, right? And there's a lot of other people that might mean they go without something. So it may not sound like a lot of money, or, you know, but there would really be stretch of buying. Quite frankly, the way the things are going right now, it's getting, that gap is getting wider, and that those challenges are getting harder for the people who are already squeezed, are getting squeezed even more. So I think it's only November, and I know you've all put a lot of work and effort into this, but I'd really like to see some more accommodations for just some more equity there to assist some of our most needy families. And families this month, they were worried about where they're gonna get food.
Yes, and like, you know, as regarding the fees, if a family came to us and said, I'm having a hard time paying these fees, we, you know, the first thing that we would say in our office is, you know, did you apply for free and reduced waiver? Because that automatically then waives the fees, and, you know, and people do that in the middle of the year too. If they were on a payment plan in the beginning of the year and then they're having trouble in the middle, you know, you can reapply, and we offer that. So like, I don't wanna worry about, you know, the fees, the school fees. I hear what you're saying definitely about transportation. And our principals do a great job working with the families too, trying to figure things out. And, you know, we've worked with families. We're not gonna say you cannot ride the bus, you know, you can't come to school then. You know, we've worked with families, we've worked with staff, to work things out when we know there are situations and families are able to work with us.
Yeah, and I get that, but you when you've got, you know, you've got the categories here for either free and reduced lunch, right? If they qualify for that, they automatically get, you know, certain things covered.
Mhm.
Okay, but with this structure, there's still, in particular, the transportation fees, which have no discounts. And it's not bad, the transportation fee's not bad. I don't really care what other districts around us are doing, but, and there's a specific kind of like incentive to get people to sign up and use it, but
And here, because I don't want to cut you off, Robert, but since we've already taken a motion on this, and this is what's being proposed, it's gonna kind of be like a yes or a no
No,
vote
no,
at
I
this
know
point,
that.
so.
I'm right now, I'm gonna say a no, just because I would, you know, and I think a no in this case would mean, you know, please go back and find some more equity.
Any other comments or questions?
Do you have a proposed equity structure that you would support?
You know, without getting into specifics, some way to subsidize transportation for people with free and reduced lunches.
And would you support subsidizing it with raising the fees for other families that can afford it?
Yes.
Okay. I think Ryan's point they made at the very beginning was very well stated, that the district is taking all families into consideration all the time, every cycle, and the equity is, maybe we start the conversation with, again, this year, you know, free activities, free clubs, free after-school transportation, and that's all being sustained through the concerted effort of how, you know, the budget is being proposed again, and with the incremental fee increases. And, you know, I was not trying to be dismissive when I said $5. Everything is taken into consideration, but nothing's free, right? And there needs to be incremental increases across the board in various forms, however they come. I think this was very well put out and thought through. So I'm in support of it, but definitely respect your opinion if you think that needs to be adjusted.
Just, you know, getting to and from school is a requirement. You know, staying after school and being in a club, it certainly enriches a child's life, but it is an extracurricular. It's not a requirement. So.
No, but I think that's the equity piece that gives them the opportunity to do it. If they had to decide, can I participate in this extra event? Oh, I can, because it's not financially costing.
And I do recognize absolutely that you and Ryan and everybody else has put work into this to make it, and it's like a B+ right now, how's that in my mind? So just see if we can maybe do a little bit more.
Well, but I want to caution you, because if in fact, well, I guess it's dependent on the vote.
Well, and once it's voted on, if it passes.
Right, no, I'm saying, yeah, but
Like I said, a no to me means, please go back, it's only November, maybe see if we can find a little bit more. If you think this is fine, vote yes. If not, you know, a no is asking the administration and the finance committee to just sharpen up maybe even a little bit more. And in balance with not adding a ton of complexity, right? Because that complexity of administration is something we gotta be mindful of too, so, that's it.
Any other comments or questions before we call roll? Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll? Sorry. what-
I can just add it during my yes, but I'm comfortable with these fees. I guess I think there's opportunities to, when we push them out to be, to communicate more clearly about how we're willing to work with families and ask them to contact us if they have concerns. I know that people do, but I wonder if there are people that are hesitant and saying, well, that's not me, or I don't apply for that, or, also just, I actually think, it would be interesting to like promote that the buses are free after school for clubs and stuff, because I'm not sure that everybody knows that, honestly. It's not really in communications that come home when you get a club. I'm trying to think, like, I just kind of knew it, but like, I don't think I ever got anything in first or second grade. My kids always signed up for the bus, but I just wonder if all district committees know that.
That could be a great task for our PR crew. Last chance, comments or questions? Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Would love to. Sorry, scroll down. I'm first. Friedland, yes. Ronstadt,
No,
Bianchini,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
and Pfister.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, next up is the transfer of funds from the Education Fund and Operations and Maintenance Fund to the Debt Services Fund. This is both an information item and action item. Ryan, could you please cover that for us?
Yes, so this is just part of the budget. It is transferring money from the ed fund and the O&M fund to debt service, just to pay for the ed fund for the capital leases, for the printers and copiers, and then from the O&M fund to debt service for the alternate bonds that we sold. So the alternate bonds do come out of operating funds, but we actually make the payments from the debt service fund. So we have to take them from the O&M fund, put them into the debt service so that we can pay those bond payments in December.
Any comments or questions? I'm sorry, let me take a motion and a second to adopt the resolution to transfer funds from the Education Fund and the Operations and Maintenance Fund to the Debt Services Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Friedland, second by Pfister. Any comments or questions? Okay, Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
It's me again. Friedland, yes. Grimpy,
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
Pfister,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
and Ronstadt.
yes.
Motion carries.
I keep taking your update, Louis, I'm sorry.
No,
It's still you.
That's great. I guess I'll take it over again. Next up is an information item on the delayed tax revenue and cash flow for the county.
So this happened a few years ago, but essentially 85% of our budget, that's not right, 85% of our budget revenue comes from taxes, of the tax levy. And tax bills have not gone out yet, the second installment in Cook County, which has limited the amount of revenue and cash flow that the district has been able to have seen all fiscal year. So the last time tax bills went out, they were due March 1st, and that's when, again, 85% of our budget is received through those months. So for 9 months, we haven't been able to receive any of 85% of our budget. And it becomes an issue, because now we have cash flow issues, and although our fund balances might be high enough and say, hey, we've got money in the bank, some of those funds are put into investments and long-term investments, and again, there's no money flowing in. So this was created and before, we got recent information that actually tax bills should be going out by the end of the weekend, and they will be due before the end of the year, but essentially, cash flow's been an issue. So, we are part of the 214 Treasury, so we kind of bring all of our money and pull it together with District 23, District 25, NSSEO, and District 214. So we all pool our money together, we create investments, and that kind of helps us, we pay them, District 214, $1 every year in order for them to do that for us. And essentially, with the delayed tax revenue, we have a few different options in order to maintain paying our bills and our employees on time. And I equate them to either taking out a payday loan, which is basically, it's called a tax anticipation warrant, a TWAS, and we take that out, and that's borrowing money, and then when we get paid, the tax revenue, we pay that back. Or we break certain investments, like if I'm holding a CD, I break the CD early, and I pay a penalty for breaking it early, and I don't get all of the interest revenue that I would in order to maintain our cash flow. So we've looked at this kind of together as a treasury and decided some of those investments we decided if we need to, we're going to break those early instead of having to borrow money. So we're not going to potentially receive all of the investment income that we would have expected from some of those, but we're not losing any principal, so we're not losing any of the actual dollars amount that we started, as opposed to paying interest on a short-term loan, essentially. We do have enough in investments that we can break and not really lose very much revenue or interest revenue, and those would come first before we started looking down the line. We're able to get through December. We would be able to get through January without breaking any real long-term investment and losing any principal, but luckily, with new information coming out from the county, we should be, I don't want to say flush, but we should actually see some of that tax revenue starting to come in December, late December, and in January, before they send out the first installment next year, which I'm sure will probably be a little later. But this is basically just to cover, like, there's been a lot of other school districts around us having to go and sell these tax anticipation warrants in the tens of millions of dollars in order to cover payroll and to cover things. And really, it's a problem and an issue at the county, and the county getting out the tax bills so that the taxpayers can pay their tax bills, and then all the taxing school districts, villages, municipalities, townships can get that revenue as part of your cash flow.
Anybody have any questions about this for Mr. Barry?
So everything we think is not fine based on the most recent, or should be fine, but you'll let us know again in December if it's not.
Yes.
Because we'll have to sell something.
Yes, and I don't know if I'd use fine,
I mean,
but we will be
Moving
okay.
in the
There
right
won't be any
direction.
issues. We won't have to go out and apply for any tax anticipation warrants or additional revenue or anything like that.
The lights won't be turned off. Okay.
The lights won't be turned off. We're not shutting down. We will make payroll. We will be okay. Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Louis, you're still up.
Lucky me.
You're almost done.
Okay.
Last but not least.
Last one here. We have the 2025 tax levy, and this is an action item.
So speaking of taxes, looking at next year, because we assess 2025's taxes in 2026, and we have to approve everything in 2025, looking at the tentative levy for 2025 tax year. So we're looking at increasing the levy approximately 3% over last year's levy. We're able to increase the levy proceeds by CPI of the following year. So CPI from 2024 was 2.9%. We're increasing or asking for slightly more in order to gain all of the new property advantages in the tax system. $1 million is approximately an extra $33,000 of tax revenue for us for new property. So we're asking just over the 2.9% that we're able to get. There are some other safeguards in place that the county puts in, and then we will also add an additional safeguard in the final tax levy resolutions next month. But overall, asking for a modest 3% increase on the tax levy. The tax levy, it's an action item because we approve to have the board certify the tentative levy. We'll have a hearing on it next month, present kind of on the whole process, and then the board will approve the final levy adoption at the December board meeting.
Okay, let me entertain a motion and a second to approve the tentative 2025 tax levy and the following schedule. November 11th, 2025, the board certifies the tentative levy. On November 28th, 2025, a legal notice will be published in a local newspaper. On December 9th, 2025, the board will hold a public hearing and levy adoption, or we will vote on it to adopt. And then on December 31st, 2025 is the final day to file the levy with Cook County. Moved by Grimpy,
Second.
second by Friedland. Any comments or questions?
My question is just related to that note that, and making sure I'm understanding, I think we've always done it this way, I support it, but we're not required to post this because it's under a certain threshold, right?
Correct. We're not required to hold a truth in taxation hearing, which is the levy hearing. We're not required to do that because we're not asking for more than 5%. It's just been kind of a procedure of the board to do that in order to offer the community an opportunity to come out and ask any questions or voice any concerns that they may have.
Anything else? Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
This 3% tax increase is a bigger financial burden than the fee increase that we proposed on the students. So if we
Well,
want-
for homeowners, not necessarily for families, because you don't know that the family is the homeowner.
Right. I think most landlords usually like to pass along their tax burdens to the tenants in a lot of cases. And if they're in the same financial distress situation like everybody is, there's a likelihood that they would like to pass it along. So I think just as an opportunity to help curb that measure, this is an opportunity for us as a board to not push for 3% and something below that, if we wanted to take that into consideration. Now, I actually did support this and moved it forward to say we come forward with the 3%, but just using the same thought process of, well, everybody has to pay their taxes, in one form or another. This is an opportunity to take that into consideration.
But we really don't vote on it till December 9th. This is just approving the schedule and the tentative levy.
Well, this is a good time to propose something that will be amended, so it's not too late when it comes at the next board meeting.
I see your point. That's fair.
I agree with you. I think, I always try to think through this levy, and like, my thought is, maybe I'm misthinking it, but like, we're actually, like, you think of there's a pool of money, and all of these taxing bodies are asking for a part of it. And I feel like if we don't ask for the amount that we think we can, because we're stymied by a CPI index and like new business and things like that we almost aren't getting our district share, because somebody's going to get that pool of money, whether it's us or the village or Cook County or whoever. And so I think we always have this debate is like, do you levy, and then if we have an excess of money, we abate, or we use that to pay use money to pay off bonds that in a better interest? Like, are there other fiscally responsible things we could do? And that's where I don't know, but I do feel like in this case, like, that's where my head is about the levy, is like, if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. But I'm not sure it brings down everybody's taxes the way we think it would.
It really, the, as proposed, it increases the taxes by CPI for everybody, every piece of property. And then the added percentage is there to capture new taxes. So if somebody builds a house or, moves into a business because an occupied or leased office space or retail space is taxed at a different rate than an unoccupied rate, that allows us to capture that tax revenue at the same percentage going forward. And then to your point, Lewis, if the rate goes up, was it 2.9% or something, right? Goes up 2.9%, then, if somebody's rent goes up, but, typically rent goes up by CPI. So, although it hasn't been lately, because, there's somewhat of a housing shortage. I don't know specifically around here, but so I think, and, if we don't tax or don't levy, so because it's tied to CPI, we also have our staff looking for adjustments. That's how we pay for raises. Like, I don't see any way of doing it outside of, I don't see any way to do it. Just weird, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth on fees. Well, the fees I don't like because they're like a requirement. Like, you're going to school, like, you provide a free and, a free and appropriate education to every student, and then you're saying, oh, but you can't, to get there, you gotta pay. With the property taxes, it's, you pay associated with your property value.
Any other comments or questions? Please call roll.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, Camardo,
Yes.
Pfister,
Yes.
I'm so sorry. Ronstadt,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
motion carried. I called everyone correct.
Yes.
I called you correct.
Yes, you did. Next up is the ISB delegate report. This is Bianchini, you are our representative. You have the floor.
Okay, so I've reviewed the findings of the board members' comments regarding the resolutions. 2 board members requested further discussion on the following resolutions. Item 3, Article 4, Elections, Section 1. The nominations, that was Janine. And item 9, Article 11, Miscellaneous, Section 7, Declared Emergencies. That was Robert. So I wanted to take this opportunity, Janine, if you had a request for additional information or discussion.
I'm sure I do, but could you give me 1 second?
Of course.
I think my whole thing was that not having the process behind it to be able to see who is actually running for those spaces. I think and the fact that the previous board, which works with the individuals, if I'm recalling correctly, that work with the individuals to slate people to pick up the pieces next, are like, they're already working together. This whole thing, it seems very convoluted to me. I don't like it. I mean, I think it's a process that pretty much just takes people and continues to like buddy them into that system, if from what I can recall. Sorry. And so I think it was more the process piece, and I don't know if I need clarification necessarily, but the fact that I don't agree and I don't understand how it gets I don't understand how it's ethically selected without having some sort of buddy piece in place.
I think I agree with you. I see that point. I guess maybe I read it differently. It's like the language they added, I guess, helps the current section, but it doesn't really change anything. It just kind of, for
And the
me,
amendment doesn't change the
it-
process. I
it
have
just,
the
it
same
just
problem.
adds some clarification language, like, I don't like the process, but like, I guess I didn't flag this because I was like, well, this kinda just didn't really change anything. Because it just added like, it's consistent with the Illinois Association School Board Directors governance policies, and that seems like the document that we would have to change in order to change
Correct.
the process. And I don't know how we go about
Yeah,
that.
because
but,
even
I mean,
if
we
you
could burn it
say
all
do
down.
not adopt, the whole thing is still, it's
Well,
there.
it's,
Then it just
still gonna
stays the
be-
way it is.
It's still gonna be in place.
Correct.
So then, I guess in my question, can you help me out on this? Is that like when we start to talk about like proposing new
Yeah, we can.
resolutions where, yeah, and then this would be edited?
Well, you would have to wait until they do another constitutional
Right.
review, which they don't do every year.
Okay.
Because these are amendments to the ISB Constitution. These are
Yeah.
not the resolutions.
No,
Those
they're
are
not.
different.
Yeah.
Make a resolution and change the constitution.
Right?
So you're a do adopt with everyone else?
Mm-hmm.
Or you could be a do not.
In principle.
No, I mean, I think they're both awful. I don't like these changes either. Oh, I mean, that's fine, adopt, it doesn't, I don't think it
It
necessarily.
doesn't address what you want.
Right, it does not, it does not make me any happier than I was the first time I read it, so.
Okay. What was the second one?
The second one was Roberts, and for the Article 11 miscellaneous, Section 7, declared emergencies.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, allowing the board to, the whole purpose of a constitution is have an agreed upon operating agreement and set of standards and rules. And I mean, quite frankly, anything that says that, the President of the United States right now can declare an emergency and suspend the constitution, whether it's a school board constitution or any other ones, I'm not okay with that. So that's all. I think once the constitution's approved, it should be amended through proper channels. And an emergency, as have been declared by our particular president, are arguably not emergencies. So that's all.
Okay, so you're a do not adopt on that one,
Yeah, no.
but you don't need to discuss it, okay? Because I think the ones that Kimberly's bringing up are the
Yeah.
ones that were marked as unclear, like folks didn't know which way to go.
Sorry.
So
Wait,
I'm
you're
trying to
good.
gain guidance as to where you're going with that. So you're saying you're a do not adopt with that? I still think that we had the quantities. Okay. So, based on even these discussions, the majority of the board agreed with the recommendation of the board of directors and the resolution committee to adopt the following. Item 1, Article 2, membership, sections 1 through 6, rewritten. Item 2, Article 3, delegate assembly, section 2, delegate assembly. Item 4, Article 4, elections, section 2, terms of office. Item 5, Article 5, board of directors, section 2, composition. Item 6, Article 7, committee, section 3, nominating committee. Item 7, Article 8, division, section 4, officers. Item 8, Article 9, resolutions, section 2 through 7, rewritten. Item 10, Article 12, amendments, section 2, proposals. Additionally, resolution school bus safety funding. President Grimpy, please proceed with the motion to adopt items 1 through 10 and the resolution school bus safety funding.
Thank you. Let me entertain a motion and a second to adopt amendments 1 through 10 and the resolution for school bus safety funding.
Moved.
Moved by Fisker,
Second.
second by Bianchini. Any other comments or questions?
So it's an up and down, it's an up or down on the whole thing.
We're voting on all of it because we,
Well, it's the majority of do adopts covered all of them.
Okay,
right.
There was nothing that was even close to not being a majority.
okay, just clarifying.
Any other comments or questions? Mrs. Friedland, could you please call roll?
Ronson?
No.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Pfister?
Yes.
Camardo,
Yes.
Friedland. No. Bianchini
Yes.
and Grimby.
No.
We,
Oh, passes.
It passes.
sorry, motion carries.
Okay.
Do you have this, or you want me to do it?
I can do it, or you can do it, either way.
I mean, I call the motion. That's what's next on there. Well, do you have anything to report on?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
So I would like to review the nominating committee report with the board and ask for guidance on how to cast the district's vote. The vote will take place at the delegated assembly on November 22nd, 2025 at 10:30 a.m. The state candidates are as follows: Tracy Sayre, IASB President; Alva Kreutzer, IASB Vice President. Are there any questions? Hearing none, we will hold two nominations, one for president and one for vice president.
All right, let me entertain a motion in a second for Mrs. Bianchini to vote in support of Tracy Sayre for the 2025 IASB president.
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Ronstadt, second by Camardo. Any comments or questions? Great, could you please call roll?
Camardo, oh, sorry, Camardo,
Yes.
Grimby,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Abstain.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Visser,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Motion carries.
Okay, can I entertain a motion in a second for Mrs. Bianchini to vote in support of Alva Kreutzer for the 2025 IASB vice president?
Moved.
Second.
Motion by Bianchini, second by Camardo. Any comments or questions? Okay, I do have one. Currently, Mrs. Kreutzer sits on the 214 board, and considering what they are about to embark on as far as the size of the referendum that they're looking at for 214, I just think that this is very bad timing for her to be splitting her attention on the IASB vice president role and the 214 role. This affects our taxes, our students, my taxes, your taxes. Except for Mrs. Pfister. She doesn't live in 214. So I am a no vote. This has nothing to do with her personal ability to be the IASB vice president. I would just rather her really focus on what's going on at 214 and get that house in order before she ventures off into other roles. That's my personal opinion. Anybody else comment or question before we call roll?
Thanks for sharing that. Good perspective.
My pleasure.
And I apologize, can you say who made the motion?
Sure. It was moved by Bianchini and second by Camardo.
Thank you.
Could you please call roll?
Camardo,
No.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Visser,
Yes.
Grimby.
No.
Friedland, yes. Ronstadt,
No.
motion carries.
Okay. You got your,
Oh, sorry,
Thank you for doing that.
wait, I just said, wait. I'm so confused.
It's a split, isn't
It is.
yeah, but
It's carries.
it's all carries, a split vote
You need a majority
motion.
to-
Yeah, you need a majority to defeat a motion. So the motion carries. So you'd be voting in favor of it.
Right, I don't know
It's a weird definition of a majority.
why did it do that?
Well, I'm sorry, you need a majority to defeat it, which we don't have.
I'm not sure I knew that.
I've never actually seen it. Oh, no, sorry, I meant, on our system, I'm not sure why that did that.
All right, next up is the president's report, upcoming events, district news and board meeting dates. Euclid's got the pizza and bingo night on the 14th at 6 p.m. The middle school will be hosting the craft fair, which was extremely popular last year. If you guys had a chance to come to see it, it was there were booths everywhere. It was fantastic to see. We also have an orchestra concert on the 8th of December at 7 p.m. Other dates of note for the board, we have our conference next week from the 20th to the 23rd. Each board member did have an envelope with your name on it. That's got your badge, tickets for events that we have signed up for and registered for, and everything is in there. If you have any questions on what's in there, please make sure you chat with Patty before next week. We have Thanksgiving break from the 26th to the 28th, and our next meeting will be on the 9th of December at 7 p.m. at Euclid School. And that's it for me. So next up is the superintendent's report. Dr. Megram, you have the floor.
Okay, before I jump into my report, I did also want to thank Mr. Kastner and the RTEA for basically the same thing that he had said earlier. Negotiations have been going really well and just so much, it's just easy. And it's my first negotiations with the team, so thank you, Bob. Thanks to your team for all the prep work. I think a lot of that front work has made things go really easy, but it has been, I think both teams have the same interest to make the district better than what it was before, and we're able to make good progress on that so far. So thanks for everything. Shifting gears to my superintendent report, I know that I've put a few updates in my Friday weekly on the strategic plan and things that are moving along, but I thought I would bring something a little bit more formal and give you some of the data that I've collected so far. So just going to hit on, I put some of the graphs in the presentation in terms of the survey data that's been open and will close on the 21st of this month. We're prepping to get our focus groups going over the next couple of weeks and then just kind of show you my original timeline with some updates. So far, or when I put this together, I've had have about 300 responses from in total from this for the survey. As I mentioned, it's open until the 21st. I was pleased to see that we have 80 community members, so that makes me happy that the postcards or the communications out to the community have been reaching the appropriate channels, and those are all people who do not currently have students in the district, so I was happy with that number so far. We had just over 100 parents, and students are coming soon, grades 4 through 8. And I think one group to really work on targeting is former students. We have a small bundle there, so if anyone sitting next to me has any former students that attended the district, I would love it if they had a few minutes. I mean, literally maybe 3 minutes to fill out the survey. So that's going to be one group that I try to target a little bit better. So this is just a quick graph just to show you the breakout of the different groups. So you can see there's a nice distribution so far. That dark blue, royal blue, is the current students. As I mentioned, we haven't really attacked to that group yet. And then the former students is the smallest group so far. But a nice blend, I think, of responses across the different stakeholder groups. Similar with building representation. Obviously, Prairie Trails and Euclid are smaller than the other buildings, but you can just kind of get an idea of the breakout there. And shifting gears, we're working on setting up focus groups. So I have identified group leads, 2 group leads per group who are going to be setting up those meetings, inviting folks, and then basically just asking the questions that were outlined in the survey. There's about 4 questions per group. And so the idea here is really just to be able to get more of the qualitative data. Some of those questions are the same or similar to what was asked multiple choice in the survey. So we'll be able to cross-reference and just, again, get some follow-up questions, get more detail, and hopefully identify some themes from those groups. So again, happy to say that I'm actually over I think I'm at 21 parents had indicated that they were interested in being in a focus group, which exceeded my expectations. A lot of familiar names, so that is great to see. But I love that I think, we have a nice, good group of people to start digging into focus groups. 9 community members, again, some names that are familiar and other names that are not familiar at all, so an opportunity to build relationships there. And so most are going to be doing two focus groups. The parent group is larger than I thought, so they've actually broken that out into 3. We were targeting like 6-ish average per focus group, so that people really could actually speak and not join a group and then sit there and not be able to talk. So we do know, as I mentioned, the former students are kind of small, so that we might need to wait to put those focus groups together. So this is the identical roadmap that I shared with you probably in May or June, early summertime. So kind of where we are in the process, we've ticked off some things, and then I've updated the timeline, really just to be more realistic in where we are with everything. And so I think, still moving along, but have some work to do and getting us wrapped up by the end of the school year. And that's where we're at. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for Dr. Marriott? I just want to comment that this is fantastic because most districts go out and hire a firm, which clearly takes funds to do. So the fact that she is able and clearly willing to tackle this on her own with her team is fantastic. So I just kudos to you very much. So thank you so much for tackling this. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay. Actually, I forgot one thing on my report. So the Mount Prospect Shining Stars Gala has accepting nominations until next Friday, and one of the there's 2 categories that could affect District 26. One is outstanding youth. So any just has to be a youth that lives in Mount Prospect. So that's open to any teachers, any admins, anybody wants to nominate a youth who lives in Mount Prospect. That's your opportunity. And then on the flip side is outstanding teacher. So any community members can nominate a teacher that has to teach Mount Prospect students. So it doesn't matter what school, as long as they're teaching Mount Prospect students. So those are in till the end of next week. Let's see. Next up is communications to the board. This is an email. We did not receive any. FOIA requests, we did receive 2. Thank you for taking care of those. And future topics. Does anybody have any future topics they would like to ask the board to consider?
Yes, I have one, but before, since you took an opportunity, I'm going to throw one in I forgot. Kirk School, which is the special ed school for high schoolers in transition, they do this thing to help the kids called micro businesses, and the kids make up stuff and sell it. And I think they have like an online store, and they put like their heart and energy into this stuff. So if anybody needs their day brightened up, I'll get a link out at least to us here, and if there's any interest in sharing that out on a wider basis, they would love it. And then on a future topic, all right. So earlier this year, there was a bill passed by the General Assembly, and it was sponsored by Julie Morrison, and it is a bill that basically encourages school boards to look at opportunities for reorganization feasibility studies. So I'm not suggesting or thinking, hey, we should, reorganize the district or look for consolidation opportunities, but what this bill does is allocate grant funds to districts to look into what it might look like. So basically, what my you know, and I noticed this when I was at NSSEO, we have great schools, we have great staff, admin staff, rock stars, everybody here. You know, I'm like I said, I'm not advocating for a change necessarily, I'm just wanting to ask if we could ask Dr. Meggerly, especially with the strategic planning stuff we're doing, to look into the process of doing an evaluation. So really, I think what as I understand it does is it looks at, you know, some neighboring districts and, you know, and especially, you know, we're talking about like, you know, 214 doing a referendum. We're talking about maybe doing a referendum in a few years. That I think this might be a good exercise to help say, hey, we've explored everything. So, yeah, what I'm basically asking is if we could ask Dr. Meggerly, and I think, you know, time frame wise, I'm open to suggestions, but look into this bill, see if there's, you know, just look into what it might take.
Anybody have any questions for Robert?
So does that mean you want me to present to you what's in the bill? You said evaluation, I don't know what you mean by that, but I just want to be clear what you're asking me to do.
Well, I think that the way I read this bill, or the way that I read this bill, is that it allocates grant funds for a consolidation analysis. So I think that from a perspective of that I might be asking you to inquire with the state boards of education to, you know, get some referrals, you know, look at what that process is. You know, when I read it out, it was, you know, looking at, you know, neighboring districts that have similar economics, and it's House Bill 2966 if anybody wants to look at it. But it just basically provides a consultative analysis of the feasibility of going deeper into it. So very like a, yeah, so I guess I would be asking to discuss or to reach out to the State Board of Education, get some referrals, talk through the process, and yes, maybe do a presentation on what this, or just a memo on what this might look like, and if it's,
And what would look like though?
what would a feasibility study give us? A consolidation feasibility study, what information would that provide us? And basically what I understand that it does is it looks at the neighboring districts, whether, you know, elementary, high school, whatever. Like I'm kind of curious about what they're offering. So the state's put this forward to help encourage some consolidation. You know, whether that's right or wrong, I'm not talking about that opinion right now. I'm just like wanting to collect more information. Sorry, I'm not more polished about that ask.
Does anybody have any questions for Robert? Because we'll have to take a vote on it.
I'm just curious if by like the consolidation and what she was really trying to talk about here in grant pieces is like that consolidation of more rural areas, like where you'd be able to kind of combine certain things and maybe at a level that is beyond us. I feel like we run pretty lean in our district.
So it is not targeted at rural districts, it's just general. It does, you know, that they're part of their charge is to create a list of overlapping or bordering school districts with the most similar operating tax rates and percentage of adequacy funding per pupil.
I'm curious, what do you think we're gonna get out of it?
I would like to better understand the economics of, you know, we talk about like costs increasing, you know, again, we've got great schools, but, you know, we have a significant tax burden too, and great schools, great infrastructure, great parks, great services. I'm not, you know, a business, which is the world I come from, every once in a while just kind of looks around and goes, does it make sense to merge? Or does it make, you know, that's, there's just the economics associated with that.
I think it's good just to be updated on what the options are. Maybe admin has already looked into this. So my understanding of it is basically it allows the State Board of Education to offer a grant that would pay for the consultant that you hire, who would give you a recommendation if even
If it's even
consolidation makes sense for you, and if it did recommend districts that are similar, but there's steps that you have to take in order to even get approved for the grant. There's I don't know, 5 or 6 different, this, you only get one every 2 years, that type of thing. So maybe the step is just simply, is this something we would ever need or use, or do we have interest in applying for the grant?
I mean, even if we got the grant and they came by and said, you would save X amount of dollars by merging with District Y, it would still have to go to referendum to our voters.
I
and they would
think
have to pass.
we're not there yet. This is I think it's trying to get, and I don't know that we need to do it, but it's trying to get districts to look at these to have an opportunity to look at this. And yes, it wouldn't be a referendum, though I did say that there's another bill that they're trying to pass to say that you don't have to go to referendum if the State Board of Education agrees that you can consolidate, but that hasn't passed yet. I'm just saying, it seems like a bigger initiative by the State Board of Education to kind of unravel some of these opportunities for districts if they're needed. I have doubts whether our district, maybe I'm think too highly of our district, but I don't know that I would want to merge with any districts that are near us. They all just they have different issues that we luckily don't have. So, but I don't think I guess if I would support looking just in general, is this something we would ever consider, and what maybe just analyzing the bill and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't,
yeah, I agree with you. I'm not pushing you to do it. I just think it's responsible to look at it and say, there's certain assumptions we wouldn't want to, but do we know? We have, there's an assumption there that we want to, but.
I mean, I'm lucky enough to have a lot of friends on these other boards, and I can tell you that District 23 has not been successful at passing a referendum, and they can't get all-day kindergarten funded or organized right now. And the cuts that they're going to have to make, if we were to merge with them, that would be a huge strain on our structure.
Do you know that for sure, though?
Do I know that they didn't pass a
No,
referendum?
I know that they
Yes.
did. But so they have just on that example, and and this is why I pushed it, because their student funding per pupil is higher than ours. Okay, so we obviously have some, and a lot of our numbers are better, so we're more efficiently operating.
Correct.
And I have that same assumption you do. They can't pass a referendum, they can't fund, but is that all? What does it look like in the totality of it?
But I mean, that'll put a strain on our system.
Maybe.
How could it not?
Because we don't know the specifics of what I'm asking this feasibility study to be done.
I don't think the ask should be to have a feasibility. My ask would not be to let's apply right now for feasibility. I think the ask would be, can we get an opinion from after reviewing the law, if it even makes sense to do, or to even just consider in the strategic plan or something like that. But I don't expect you to come back and apply to the grant that I don't think we're there yet, and I don't want to make assumptions this district or we would get voted down or whatever. I do think that one of our jobs is to consider all the options.
But if we're not going to apply for the grant, then why are we doing it?
I don't know enough. I'm not an expert at applying for grants. We're just saying, should we not? Let's apply.
So you've already
Like
I'm asking.
I sit and I look, and I'm not saying it even I don't know that if you ask me today, I'd vote no. Like, I don't think it makes sense. But we do partner with a lot of districts. We have an SSCO. We share a treasury with schools. Like, to say that, like, there's not districts that we would, and I know, I wish Donna was here, because she would give us the full history of, I think there's been many votes of consolidation in her time here, and they were all no, obviously. But it's not the first time this board has looked at options.
Well, I'm fine with looking at the bill. I'm not fine with going out and pursuing additional work currently to actually apply for the grant, use resources to work our way through that piece. I'm fine looking at the bill.
I mean, I also can't make the connection between, because we're doing a strategic plan, this would be a good time for it. If we were to merge, or even look into the possibility of merging, our strategic plan is based off of our district. So if we were gonna go forward with trying to merge, that would blow the strategic plan out of the water.
I think we're jumping a little bit too far ahead. I think
Those are the connections you guys are trying to sell me on.
Okay, I'll take the strategic plan off the board. We're always thinking, I'll rephrase it, that we're always thinking of the future, whether that is, how do we renovate trails, how do we update our systems, how do we get rid of boilers that don't work sometimes, like, we're always thinking, and I think we have pride in thinking creatively. This is just an opportunity that I think, can we just look at the bill and see? It could be like, this actually doesn't make sense, too much work, not a priority.
I support Jody writing a one-page memo saying, worth considering, here's the time.
Does that give you enough direction? Or what questions do you have, so that you have?
Well, I don't know if you all want to know the bill better, or if you want my recommendation.
Your recommendation. Your recommendation
Because,
on,
yeah,
you read the bill, you recommend we think about this next step after it, or you read the bill and said this is totally out of scope, not a part of the future of 26, because it really is not worth our time or resources or money. From your perspective, it's just way too far out of scope, and then that's it. Or you say, it could be interesting, maybe we continue the discussion.
I don't think anybody has ever, again, I do think we run a good, solid, lean, mean school district, gets great results. But, nobody's ever said that government is totally efficient. So, one of the things that prompted this for me was working with NSSEO. It was a kind of a silly thing, but did you know we all as taxpayers pay for 3 subscriptions to Board Book? It was kind of silly. Like, that was what, kicked it off, where I was like, we pay for ours, pay for 214s, or I don't know what 211 uses, or 207, and NSSEO has one. I'm like, even the high school, we're talking at NSSEO, we have 2 high school districts that utilize NSSEO differently. So the governmental answer there is to have 3 different programs. That's what I'm asking to say, maybe a gut check, like Becky said. Look at all options. And I do think as board members, that's a responsibility of us. And nobody wants to, everybody likes status quo. Everybody's really proud of what we have. We have our community, we like it. There's so many great things about what we do. But it is our responsibility on some level to throw it all out on the table. And, we talk about, we've talked about in this district, we have values like equity. We have values like, and equity is like one. 23 struggles with passing a referendum. Why? Because they have a different population of neighborhoods. They have some high-density, low-income housing, and they have some low-density, higher-priced single-family homes. So we talk about equity, we talk about it within our district. We don't really talk about it in terms of like regional. And we all look at it and we're like, well, don't touch my piece of the pie. But if we're really talking about like just equity and efficiency and going to taxpayers for $900 million, sorry, 214, look at all your options. That's what I'm asking us to do. Just let's take a look at all our options. Let's not just write off like, well, we don't want to do this. Let's get some numbers. Like, or let's consider getting some numbers. And that's what I'm asking for. So let's consider getting some numbers. Would that provide us with some valuable data that, heck, the community or the taxpayers would just like to see that we ask the question?
How about this? I don't know if there's gonna be anything at Triple I, only because this has been on the docket, this has been up for years, but I can give you some links to look at the bill, or you guys can look at it or consider it for the next month, and then maybe at the next board meeting, I might have better direction once you all know more about it. Because, I mean, it seems like everybody has a different opinion, you know, numbers, my recommendation, go down the path at all, like we're talking about a lot of different things, so.
I liked Lewis's idea, but I'm okay coming back
Or
and talking
you
about
guys,
it.
let's do a straw poll.
And I also would just add to Lewis's idea that this isn't urgent, so if it needs to wait a few months or like till you get to it, like it's not something you need to report on right away.
Yeah, totally agree with that. This is something that could wait months longer. Like I said, I just think it's a responsible question to ask.
I mean, I'm against it. I think it'd be a waste of time. I think right now, looking at the neighboring districts, and I'm not saying this because I'm on the District 26 board, I could see a lot of districts who would want to merge with us. I don't see any benefit for us wanting to merge with somebody else right now. You got 57 that just passed their second referendum in 8 years. District 23, unfortunately, has not been able to pass a referendum. We've been able to remodel 3 schools without going to a referendum. If there's any district that people would want to merge with, it would be us. So I'm not interested.
So I'll go further. That
You're not going to sell me.
No, I know, but the part of the process, if there is a decision to consolidate, is a way to balance the investments that the districts have made. But that is part of the consolidation project, because they also have to deal with contracts, like fund balances, bonds, like they
Correct.
figure all that stuff out, and it's not like an overnight thing. I mean, if we decide to do something, it could take 5 years or more. But again, it's like, and I get like everything you're saying, but I'll also put just something where I grew up. It was the idea that our district is separate from the high school district is kind of baffling to me. Like where I grew up, and granted the schools here are a lot better, but whatever, K through 12 was one school district. And my daughter just went to her seat, and good transition, great people, not as clean of a transition from Indian Grove to River Trails. So, why
Okay.
not on a macro level?
Okay, hold on. Before we get way in the weeds on a topic that we're not, I know, I'm trying to reel you guys back in. So, is it okay if we read the bill ourselves? Because I honestly, I don't even know if the level that you guys are getting to, it could literally be like, can we just have the same printer? I mean, so I don't want to be jumping into this when we talk about consolidation. I would rather just read the bill, come back, and then have a little bit more understanding. So that would be super helpful. So I don't want to put it onto future topics yet, but I would like everyone to write it in their notebooks, and we can come back to it and address it. And that is my opinion, just so, because we can talk at all different levels, and both of you are making very good points. I just don't, I think we're
Totally on board with that. The only thing I'd like to ask is, can we put it on the agenda just to touch base on? Like, the next agenda, we all agree.
Can we?
But then what are we doing?
Because technically it
Because
won't.
I just don't want it to get forgotten about, that's all.
Well, no, it would stay in future topics. It could stay.
Okay, it could stay in future topics. If it stays in future topics, then I'm good.
I think that's where you would have to do a straw poll to decide to put it on
Right.
a future topic.
Correct.
With
I mean, we could put in the president's report, we can.
Can you put it in your
It would just stay in future topics. It would just stay
It's not
down
writing
there
in memo anymore.
until we.
The future topic
topic
is.
is.
There has to be a topic. for the future?
Correct.
Like, what's the?
The
It would be
topic
the state-
is to
state-
determine if we want to give Dr. Megerly further direction after we read the bill.
Okay, but hold on, because we did this before. Remember when we put a future topic on and then we had to vote the future topic off because nobody wanted to actually talk about it then? So what I'm saying is, can Jody just maybe put it in her weekly update, and then we can all click on the link for the bill, and then we can read it, and then we can come back to it? Are you okay with that, Robert?
Fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Kind of the whole point was to start the conversation.
And you definitely did. We all did. That was
Any other
delightful.
future topics for consideration?
Love you guys.
You could drop the mic.
All right, hearing none, let me entertain a motion and a second to go into closed session for the matters of personnel and negotiations at 9:31 PM. We do not anticipate taking any action outside of closed session.
Moved.
Second?
Moved by Pfister, second by Bianchini. Please call roll.
Camardo,
Yes.
Ronstadt,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Friedland, yes. Pfister,
Yes.
And for the record, we're going into closed session for the matters of negotiations and personnel.
at 9:30.
Let me entertain a motion and a second to resume in open session at 9:59.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by Pinkini.
Sure, Camardo,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, and Pfister.
Yes.
We are back in open session.
All right, let me entertain a motion and a second to adjourn at 9:59.
Moved. Second.
Moved by Pfister, second by
I
Bianchini.
make it easy for you.
Thank you. All right, Camardo,
Yes.
Bianchini,
Yes.
Ronstein,
Yes.
Grimpy,
Yes.
Friedland, yes, and then Pfister.
We're adjourned at 10 o'clock.
You ready to write down all those lines?
So I just.
Anybody have any questions on triple I, by the way, before we